What's up, guys? Welcome to Newswave Week in Review. This is our Saturday show where I will go back through the week, take a look at some of the big parts of the week for news in video gaming, and then we'll take a look at your comments, see what you guys had to say. We're going to do something a little different today and going forward. I'm also going to include one new piece of news in the beginning that we can kind of go over, just to give you guys some new information as well, and then we'll from there go through Monday through Friday and pick out comments and kind of talk to you guys about them and everything. I think it'll be a lot of fun. There were some, of course, some great comments from this past week. Some of the topics were really good. And, of course, we have to talk about E3 very quickly before we get into that. So let's start with Nintendo's plans for E3 of 2018. Now, they put this slide out on Twitter, and it was pretty much just them saying, hey, these are our plans for E3 2018, which, of course, is in roughly a month and a half now. So about 6 weeks we'll be at E3, which is super exciting that we're that close, by the way. It's pretty awesome. You'll see at the top, Splatoon 2 World Championship. We heard about this. They're doing the opening rounds June 11th from 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's PT Pacific time, and the finals will follow on June 12th. The big thing that everybody wants to know about, the video presentation. That's the big event where we're going to see all kinds of cool stuff. They say get a look at Nintendo Switch titles for 2018, including the recently announced Super Smash Bros. Game, something we knew was going to be there. Starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time, June 12th. That'll be noon for me here. And yes, guys, you're going to be asking me, we're going to be live streaming. Don't worry. We're going to have a whole lot of stuff going on E3. I can't wait till you guys kind of get an idea of what we're planning here. It's going to be really neat. But yes, E3 is going to be a big focus here on this channel. It's going to be really fun. They did say they're looking for titles for 2018. However, they kind of said something similar last E3, and then they showed us a bunch of stuff that is obviously not out in 2017. So they did say there will be something else following later down the line, later on in the year, probably just another direct, obviously, for games following up next year. But it sounds like they're going to have a big focus this year, which is awesome. The Treehouse is happening 3 days of Nintendo Switch gameplay with Nintendo Treehouse members and developers. Starts with the recently announced Super Smash Bros. Game right after the video presentation. So we're going to jump right into Smash Bros., which is great for anyone really excited. I remember, guys, we did this whole stream for the Treehouse last year. It was a ton of fun. We all kind of hung out and watched. I remember watching a lot of Mario Odyssey, a lot of Samus Returns, but it was a lot of fun, and we had a great time. And it was pretty well paced. We saw a lot of games, if you remember, so I'm excited to do the presentation, the Treehouse. We're going to have a ton of fun, guys, and it's going to be great. And then, of course, the Super Smash Bros. Invitational 2018 starts right after the conclusion of the Splatoon 2 World Championship Finals on June 12th. So there we go. The date, the time, it's set. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I am so ready for E3 to get here. Not just for Nintendo, but for everybody, because like last year, Ubisoft really knocked it out of the park. So I kind of want to see who, other than the big three, the Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, what other company is going to show up and pull an Ubisoft from last year, if anyone will. I like to think someone will, but there's a lot of stuff still kind of lingering out there that I think we've even forgotten about outside of the big three. I mean, what about Rocksteady? Rocksteady was supposed to have some big announcement at some point, right? They kept talking and hinting about it. So that's going to be awesome. And then, of course, Nintendo's going to be a good time as well, because there's so many question marks when it comes to things like Pokemon, Retro. What's going on with, what's Retro doing? What's Retro Studios up to? We keep asking, is it a new IP? I feel like it is, and I think that's where we're going to see it. And then, of course, there's a ton of other games. Smash Bros, a big focal point, obviously. Yoshi, maybe an Animal Crossing, maybe Pikmin. There's so many questions, and I can't wait to get to June 12th. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. So make sure you stop by. We'll have the whole stream and everything going on here. We'll have all kinds of discussions, a lot of previews and highlights and stuff happening as well. It's going to be a very busy couple of days here, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you guys join us as we cover all of E3. All right, guys, now let's jump into the week, starting with Monday. We talked about Valve buying Campo Santo, the developing studio behind Firewatch. Firewatch, of course, is currently being ported to the Switch, technically making Valve a publisher on Nintendo's latest system. Crackdown 3 was rated in Brazil, making fans speculate about its release date being closer than we might think. Pyra says, I have a feeling Crackdown 3 is gonna flop. This is the big uphill battle that Microsoft is currently facing. We heard about Crackdown 3 forever ago, 2014, I think. It's been that long. So, of course, we all imagine a very troubled development cycle with it being delayed. Some of us were worried it was gonna be canceled. The fact that it's been rated means that it's pretty much almost done. Like, they have to show them all the content, as I told you guys on Monday. But this is the uphill battle they're facing. Fans think the game's bad before it even comes out, and honestly, it's hard to blame them, right? I mean, the game's been delayed. We haven't seen anything about it. It's gone completely quiet since then. And what we did see of it, it looked okay, but it wasn't like groundbreaking. They kept talking about the cloud, and that was about it. Not much else. Some people were even turned off by the visual style, although Crackdown 3 has never really looked super realistic or anything, or Crackdown in general, I'm sorry, the Crackdown franchise has never looked like super realistic or anything. I actually loved the first one. Second one was, I was all right. I was hoping the third one would pull me back in. And I'm going to get it when it comes out. This is the thing about Crackdown 3 that everyone has to remember. It's going to have a development cycle that is about as long as God of War. So no matter what, it's going to be compared to Sony's big games. Their big IPs like a God of War that was in the oven for about 5 years. Well, Crackdown 3, it's looking like it's probably going to have been in the oven for 5 years, since what we saw in 2014 had probably been in development for at least a year, I'd say, just to have that preview and some of the mechanics up and running there. So that's the thing that Microsoft's going to be facing. They're going to be facing fans really comparing it to Sony's games. And I'm concerned that Crackdown 3 isn't going to live up to the hype that God of War created for Sony's games, and it's going to be that uphill struggle for a while, and hopefully it comes out, hopefully it's awesome, because I'd love to have another really good Crackdown game, but as Pyre is saying here, fans already have this negative perception of it just because they can't seem to show us anything about it or even get it out on time. On Tuesday, we went over Quantic Dream, the creators of the upcoming PlayStation release, Detroit Become Human, suing media outlets in France over articles written about poor working environments at Quantic Dream. Cryptid Sky says, France does have freedom of the press, it's just differently worded. You can check out Press Freedom Index if you want to verify. I appreciate that, Cryptid Sky. I did make a very false statement in that video, and I felt really bad about it, because I went back through it after I posted and everything, and I had this idea that France, you guys already saw it, didn't have like freedom of press like the US, and it sounded really bad the way I said it. I went through and edited and fixed it and everything after the fact, but it was, the whole story wasn't a story I would normally tackle, right? That's definitely not a story I should have really been tackling by myself, maybe with other people helping me, because it's a pretty broad story where you go between, different countries and everything. Obviously, I'm based in the US, so looking at another country's government, trying to figure out their laws and everything, not my strong suit. I'm better at, opening systems and talking about sales and stuff with gaming media or games coming out, or understanding some of those trends and everything. But when we get into like foreign law and stuff like that, or other countries' constitution rights and everything, it's not my strong suit. So I kind of saw that, and then I went through the comments and I was like, yeah, all right, I deserve that. I deserve that. I deserve that. It's pretty coarse, but yeah, I probably deserve that. I fixed it. So yeah, that wasn't my best segment there. So I guess that's the way it goes sometimes. I just wanted to correct it, and I put in the comments to correct it as well, and then I would kind of talk about it here also. So next time, if I decide to try to tackle something like that, I'll probably make it its own video and just spend probably days, maybe even on it, kind of researching and getting everything together, because that's something that doesn't work well, I think, with the deadline of Newswave, with it just being kind of me working on it. Wednesday, we talked about a fix that has been found for some Switch systems that have been bricked by third-party docks. What appears to be happening is a power management chip inside the Switch malfunctions after a third-party dock is used, and replacing this chip seems to fix the problem. Wolfenstein 2 also had its file size revealed and seems to be small enough to fit on a 16GB card, despite having the download requirement on the box art. Jazzy Jeff 2891 says, Wolfenstein 2 Switch is odd for me. Makes me think it's better to buy certain games digitally rather than physical if the entire game isn't on the cartridge, even though I like having physical games. I mean, it's hard to blame you in this case. The thing about Wolfenstein that's the weirdest thing that I don't really get is 14 gigabytes essentially. Is that its entire file size? Or do you download that from the eShop and then you download more after that? Because L.A. Noire, I believe, is shown as the full, 29 gigabytes or whatnot. Whereas this shows 14. 14 fits on a 16 gigabyte cart like Doom, like Skyrim. Doom, you had to download the multiplayer, but of course, Wolfenstein is all single player. That's the thing that confuses me, because it definitely turns off the physical nature of buying your games. I mean, really, if you look at what Nintendo said in their last the shareholders meeting the other day, they said that their digital sales are up massively on the eShop, like 80% or something. And I have a feeling some people are just not even buying some of these games where you have to download the game anyway. I really don't know why I even bought L.A. Noire physically. Actually, no, you know, the reason I did get it physically is because I was able to get it at midnight from Walmart, so I could do gameplay pretty quickly for everyone who wanted to see how it played, and it worked out well that way. But honestly, Wolfenstein, that'll probably end up being a digital buy, just because I don't really like the idea of having to buy a cartridge and then have to download more, or it won't work, because what happens when those servers get shut down? I feel like your physical copy is then useless, I think, right? Dukas 10,000 says, you can transfer your save to another Switch, go to settings on the Switch, users, then transfer your user and save data. Yeah, I know we can do that. I was curious if I could ever just move like 2 saves. There's a few saves on there. I want to get my Mario Odyssey save off of there because I had quite a few moons that I was building up, and honestly, Mario Odyssey, while it's a fun game, some of those moons are kind of repetitive because they're easy, and some of them are kind of difficult, and yeah, but I wanted my Xenoblade save, and I want that. I specifically don't want to move the entire user over, and the reason for that is because I transferred the ownership rights from my old brick Switch to my new one. It's weird they have to do that, by the way. I had to call Nintendo, and they had to transfer my ownership rights for my digital eShop games. Otherwise, I couldn't download them, and they sounded kind of annoyed at me for asking. I don't really know what that was about, but they at least took care of that, and I don't know if that would then mess that up by transferring that, if it would erase my current one or anything. I don't know. I'm going to probably do it anyway and make a new user and have it transfer to that user, but I would like a way just to be able to grab like 2 or 3 saves off of there, and that's it. I don't really have to transfer the whole thing over, but I am going to work on fixing that Switch, and we'll see what we can do. If I can maybe just move the entire user over and just make a new one on the Switch. That way, if I want to play my Xenoblade save, I can just log in as that one user and play. Thursday, we talked about Belgium classifying loot boxes as gambling and making them illegal in their current form. Currently, the consequences include fines of up to £800,000 and 5 years in prison, both of which can be doubled due to these loot boxes being sold to minors. Parker Lark says, having spent a third of my life in Belgium, this is especially crazy because it's nigh impossible to get bills passed or governmentally to get anything done there, so they obviously really care about this. Furthermore, it's where the European Commission is, essentially the headquarters of the European Union, so they could have a decent amount of influence within policy on practically all of Western Europe. Curious to see if this has any ripples moving forward. That's the one thing I keep hearing from a lot of people online, a lot of outlets that have even covered it, is will this continue to spread, right, across Europe and then to other parts of the world? We've kind of heard other parts, like Australia. Some people actually reached out to me and said, yeah, they are classifying this as gambling and everything. We'll see if it gets to this point where they're threatening imprisonment as a consequence. But we'll see what happens from there, because I'm curious what EA and these other companies do now that the ball's kind of in their court to fix these loot boxes, specifically in Belgium. But does this mean that all of gaming starts to say, okay, is it worth having loot boxes in our games anymore if the governments will start to do this? What if this starts spreading and you have to do that everywhere? Like, that seems like a lot of work to get everything out after you design an entire game around it. Battlefront 2 was still recovering because they ripped them out the last second, which, again, good move by them because this completely missed them because of that, but they still got FIFA, so EA still has a bit of wrath here from Belgium, but I'm curious if this will continue to shape and evolve throughout gaming as we go along here, especially if something like let's say the US starts doing this as well as other parts of the world all at the same time. I mean, does EA then all of a sudden pull the plug on FIFA 19's loot boxes or whatever, right away, or do they still put them out and see if they can get away with it? I don't know. I do feel like gaming will start to figure out other ways to get games of chance somehow in there, right? I don't know. It's going to be weird, but this is such a weird time with gaming, with the government being pretty heavily involved now with some of this stuff. Although, let's be realistic here. These companies really pushed the envelope until the government had to get involved. I mean, they were kind of warned for a while, and they kept pushing and pushing. And EA, thank EA for this, right? Because they're the ones who really pushed. Finally, on Friday, we talked about a rumor that's circulating and picking up steam for Fortnite to make its way to the Nintendo Switch, possibly at E3. Final Fantasy VII Remake appears to be having serious issues behind the scenes, with development completely starting over, according to a Japanese developer on Reddit. The Blank Avatar Dude says, Fortnite can't run on the Switch. iPhones are more powerful and can barely handle it. So I get kind of what you're saying here, because the iPhone X, for example, benchmarks are crazy. They're much better than what the Tegra X1 can do, although the Tegra X1 came out in 2015, so it's kind of older technology, but the iPhone X screams in benchmarks. Seriously, the CPU is way better than what's in the Tegra X1, and the GPU also kind of smacks it around in benchmarks. But there's one thing you have to remember here in the phone world. The phone world has kind of turned into what the PC market is for games, in that developers do not target any one phone when they develop their game for the App Store for iPhones, or the app stores for Google Play for Android. They don't target any one phone. They don't take a game and specifically go, okay, Galaxy S8 or the Galaxy S9, that's all this game's going to work for, and we're going to develop it specifically for that hardware for a couple reasons. One, the hardware constantly changes, right? We're always getting new stuff. So they kind of put it out there and it has to work for a range of phones, which means some phones will be able to play it well and others won't. But the one thing that game consoles always had an advantage of is that developers know what hardware they're building it for, and they can build around it. So maybe they take certain particle effects out of the Switch version, right? Maybe they have a dynamically changing resolution, but they always know, okay, this is the Tegra X1 working with, this is the amount of RAM we're working with, these are the clock speeds, this, that, and the other. That's what we're working with, right? They know down to, seriously, the 1 megahertz frequency, they know. So that is where it's different, and that's why Fortnite will probably run really well on the Switch whenever it does come over. The Switch also was designed with Unreal Engine 4 in mind, and it supports it well. Epic knows this. So I think it'll run fine. I don't think there's any question, and you might be surprised how well it can probably run Fortnite based on how well it's running on like the Xbox One and the PS4, where they're just blasting through 60 frames per second modes. So I do think they can move it over to the Switch, even if it's 30 frames, and I think it'll actually look pretty decent. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Newswave Week in Review. If you guys enjoyed this Saturday show, make sure you hit the like button. It really does help out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether you want to talk about loot boxes, that's what everyone wants to talk about. Maybe you want to talk about Nintendo's E3 plans, because it's happening, guys. It's getting here quick, right? It's sneaking up on us 6 weeks out or so. This is going to be a lot of fun. Let me know what you think you want to see at E3, whether it's from Nintendo or other companies. Let me know, guys, down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys stop by later on tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have the full Spawncast going. A lot of stuff from this week to talk about, so it's going to be a great podcast, I think. It's going to be about 2 hours, so 9 to 11. Make sure you guys come on by. We'll have some fun, and I'll see you guys next time.